All right, what's going on, guys? Today I'm gonna make a deck specifically talking about side decking. So this is my current side deck as I see it. This could change from event to event. If I'm expecting a lot of like unitless control, there's a world where I play a third Bodhi Rook. Some other considerations could be cunning. It's quite strong of a card. I'm not too familiar with the card in terms of playing it in this list, so I wouldn't even know where to play it, but I do know people are testing it. It's a good card, so there's a world where you play it. Chewbacca, I think we've all kind of toyed around with the past, but I find it a little too slow at 5, and I feel like I just want to be a little bit more proactive on that turn than playing a Chewbacca and kind of hoping they don't have an answer. Same could be said with Homestead Militia, which is another interesting Sentinel, because with Han on 5, you can use Han's ability to make it a Sentinel, and it trades effectively, obviously a little bit better than Echo Base in some regards, because it'll require typically 2 hits, whereas Echo Base is typically 1, but probably trades more effectively into 1 unit, whereas this probably just eats 2 hits. Still don't love it, but it's an option. And then Yularen I do really like. If you're expecting a lot of aggro, you might want to move away from some of the Bodhis and stuff and maybe look for Yularen. It needs to be dealt with, so it will eat an attack. It does heal 1, and off of a U-Wing you can heal 3, which is really nice. So I do like the card, but I think in the current metagame with the current changes to the deck, I don't know if you need the Yularen. But I don't know what your locals look like, but I think these are other options that you could consider if you're missing things. Now, onto the deck at large, right? So we're going to talk about the aggro matchup, right? So when you think about side decking, you need to think about what are they trying to do really well that I maybe have issues with. And obviously aggro, they're just trying to race you, right? They're trying to ignore your stuff and race you. So the first thing you want to look at cutting is your resupplies, because your goal is not, I mean, your goal is to go late. Obviously that means you win, but you can't just give up free turns. So playing a resupply and claiming initiative is really scary. So it's not ideally what you want to do. You want to be able to match them. So eliminating the resupplies is your first step, right? And then you want to put in a reinforcement walker, again, because you want to get to the late game. You want to get to your walker, to your 6 resource turn, where you can maybe deploy Han 1 turn later and play your reinforcement walker early. You want to put in a syndicate lackeys, because this is essentially going to do similarly what Chewbacca did, but a little bit more proactive, because you'll be able to trade into 2 units, but eliminate 1 immediately, and then the other one, you know, you can do on your own accord, or they'll trade into it, but typically eats 2 attacks and can kill Sabine on 1 go, so really good in Sabine. And then I would put in an overwhelming barrage as my 3 there. So that's your swap for me, resupplies for these 3, because this can just blow out on your Han turn. So I really like having that option for 7 resources. Then we are still running 2 home 1s in the main deck, which I don't like against aggro decks, because it's not going to restore as much. It doesn't do a lot. So I'd probably side out these 5 cards for aggro. So right now we've sided out 3 resupplies and 2 home 1s, and we'll just have the late game of triple reinforcement walker, because I am playing them in the main deck. And I would bring in a traitoress and a 3rd Spark of Rebellion. Spark is not amazing in the matchup, but on that like turn 4-5 play, being able to hit the 4 cause I believe in is really good, especially if they've already played a 4 cause and you know they're drawing another 4 cause. You can lead your turn off with this to rip it out of their hand. So I actually do like putting in the 3rd Spark, and a lot of these decks are running wing leaders and all sorts of stuff, so traitoress on the unit that's buffed can be really strong, or traitoress on their green squad after they have a red 3, or taking the red 3, so you eliminate all the raids from them. So this is my side deck, right? Because they're playing a lot of small units, so the third Traitorous is pretty good. You want to try and hit their side deck cards out of their hand. You want to hit their 4 cards I believe in. You want to kind of clear the board on your flip turn, so that's a cool option. Syndicate Lackeys is very strong, as I've said, and Reinforced Walker will end the game for you if you can get to that turn safely. And that's kind of how I wouldn't necessarily bring in any of the rest of this stuff. This is not good against aggro. So that's your aggro matchup, okay? Now we're going to look at our control matchup. So again, now resupply and home 1, very good, because against control, the biggest thing is you got to get comfortable going to the late game, right? So we're going to leave those in. Now late game, you have to think, well, then I don't need early game. No. You want your early game, because you want to be able to summon, like, play your Greedos, play your Battlefield Marines, like, get as much damage in as possible, and just get comfortable that you're not aggro. You're not going to be able to race them to 30, but you want to get a lot of damage in. So you do want to keep all that stuff. But you have to think about, what are they not doing? Most control decks. Most control decks aren't playing a lot of units. So you can side out Alea. It's only really good against late game bombs and a ton of units to, like, for 1 turn, but it's not a great answer. So I would side out Alea. I would also side out an Akbar, right? They're not playing a lot of units. The Restore 1 isn't relevant because they're not really damaging your base. And when they play a unit, it's huge. So Akbar's not dealing a ton of damage. So I would get rid of those. Then again, they're not playing units. At least small ones, typically. So Traitorous, useless. Now, we've got our 4 cards here. So what are we bringing in against them? Bringing in Spark of Rebellion, because, again, we want to get rid of those problem cards, those Super Laser Blasts, those Avengers, those Palpatines, really big cards. We know we're going late games, so we're going to be able to play home 1 to revive Falcon quite often. That's a great way to sneak in 3 damage. And then we know they're playing big units. I just like having the option of multiple Change of Hearts. Because them summoning an Avenger and then me claiming initiative and then stealing the Avenger forces them to have an answer, or that's a lot of damage to their face. And then, you know, if you're at that late, it's 6 for you, so you probably have a bunch more resources to actually follow up. So I do like that. So that's our quick 4 card swap. Now we've got to think, what else are we doing here? Is there anything else that we can eliminate? I also think there's a world where you can cut the Ozatux, especially if you're playing like unitless, like an Iden red list or a Vader blue list, and then you want to bring in the Bodhi Rooks for this. They're playing mostly like System Patrol Craft early, not the end of the world for you to get rid of, so you don't necessarily need this as badly. And you are bringing in like the Change of Heart, so you can steal a Sentinel and get in damage that way. But Bodhi Rook's just a lot better. So if it's unitless, I look at this for sure. And even if you are playing like against like a Vader, this swap is still pretty good because they are running a lot of really good events that Bodhi can rip out of for 5. So yeah, this is a good swap here for control. In my mind, you want a little bit more late game. You want to be able to steal the late game, and you want to be able to rip the stuff out of their hands. These cards aren't doing a ton for you in what they're designed to do. So that is how I would side deck against control. Now, the next big matchup is like Boba. Boba is a hard matchup. There's no way around it. It's tricky. You have to think about what are their big plays, right? Fett's Fire Spray, the Boba unit, Overwhelming Barrage. So what are you trying to play around is key. Again, in this matchup, these are pretty good. You're hopefully going late. You want to be able to ramp for sure against that deck if you have the ability, because they're probably going to try and ramp against you. You definitely want your Spark of Rebellion in, because you want to be able to safely play your Han. So I find that deck can dead drop pretty often. So if you're able to hit that Overwhelming Barrage, that Darth Vader out of their hand, so that their flip turn's not that good, it's really strong for you. Because we're already main decking 2 Sparks, you know, we're main decking Syndicate Lackeys, which trades effectively into Boba unit. There's not a ton else that you're really looking for. Ozateks are pretty good against that deck too, so you want to keep those in. Leia is pretty effective against Boba Leader, so like I wouldn't necessarily drop that out. You could, there's a world where maybe you also drop a Leia because it's like not the most effective, and you bring in another Syndicate Lackeys. So Leia for Lackeys could work for sure, and then you want to get that next Spark of Rebellion in, and I think I would probably drop like an Ozatech and just run one, because you're not really getting run over in space. Like there's a world where you do if it's like a lot of 7th Fleet defenders and stuff. You know, obviously Fett's Fire Spray, but home one's pretty good into Fett's. I really, obviously, you still have the one. The Falcon's really good into a lot of their cards because you can pop the shields off and then bounce it and then trade. Yeah, so maybe this. There's also a world where you drop a Reinforcement Walker for this. So I think like these are the swaps that I would consider. Really just depends on how you're feeling. I think these are legitimate. This could be really good again because they do have a lot of early space units this does trade decently well into, or at least, you know, helps you get there. You're already playing one Walker in the main, so this, maybe the second one's not totally needed. I think Leia for our Lackeys is quite strong because it will trade into Boba unit and live, so that's a better trade than just like tapping the Boba unit or the Boba leader. You're still running the two Leias. There's a world where also you actually sat out a Greedo for a home one, so bring in a little bit more late game for yourself, like solid late game. Because again, what is Boba trying to do, right? They do want to ramp. So if they draw the resupply, there's nothing you can do about it. But if they only draw Super Laser Tech and you're kind of avoiding the ground arena, so you're siding out 2 early game ground units for stuff a little bit later, you're going to be able to delay their early ramp, which is when the deck really takes off. If they haven't drawn the not overwhelming barrage, the resupply. So also you want to arena dodge a little bit in that matchup. So there's a world where like you drop these two, bring in these two, these are a little bit more proactive and late game, which you're hopefully going to get to, and then one of these for a third spark, which you definitely want. This is like the 100% side in, but I would probably look at this world for siding out. So if you kept the Oz attack, right, you would side in this. So you'd have 3 home ones, 1 Walker in the main, Lackeys, Spark of Rebellion. And then from there, the side deck just kind of speaks for itself. Those are the big matchups, right? But there's still decks running around like Chirrut and Luke Green specifically, and that is like where your third trader shines, because a lot of times those lightsabers are ending up on Yoda early on. That's a game-winning swing. A third spark is good against those decks. You're typically going late against Luke, so finding room for the home one, change of hearts, and it's just about finding what you don't really need against this deck. Luke kind of struggles in space, so the Ozatucks are good because they'll stick around, but they're not ambushing much that you're having trouble with. So like these are 2 easy side outs in my opinion for that, because you want the third traders, you want the late game home one because you're probably going there, stuff like that. Maybe not both change of hearts, but maybe a second one. So there, against Chirrut, you have a pretty good matchup into Chirrut. Chirrut doesn't necessarily run over any decks, so you're probably looking at maybe these 2 cards, because you can't steal the leader. Barrage could be pretty good. It could be that surprise extra damage to finish off the Chirrut that they're not expecting, and that's also a big reason why I like having Barrage. It's never going to be bad. You can always just resource it, but it is another Han flip turn play that maybe they don't see coming, and it can be a really big blowout. Yeah, so that's basically how I think about side decking. I think about what are they doing that I have a really hard time stopping, or what is their like singular focus, like aggro control, right? Just get to the late game, run you down, and then you're just trying to take out stuff that doesn't really interact with that game plan, or you're trying to adjust things in your game plan to things that they've done to you that you can't stop. And I like having like the toolbox nature of my side deck and of my main deck, where there's like some 1-ofs, a lot of 2-ofs, and the side deck kind of flushes out a lot of 3-ofs and some other instances of just things like a Bodhi Rook, where it's just really good in the one matchup, and that matchup is annoying, and just you have to be patient, right? That's the biggest thing about aggro. Just get patient in going long, and hopefully you win that first game. So yeah, that's my side deck options. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments on other matchups or cards that you really like to side deck, maybe in a Han Green. And yeah, we'll have a wonderful side deck discussion. It's really interesting how it all works out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.